Another
Yeah.
thing I believe that I learned, uh, it's okay to say no sometimes. And I'll never forget when I was first started working at First Republic, and I was always, yes, everything, everything, everything. And then, I mean, it, it's just, it's almost impossible to do everything. But I remember I was just one day, there was something was asked, and I just can't, I mean, I can't take on another project. And I said no. And my boss didn't care. He says, okay. And he got somebody else to do it. I was pretty fascinated about that. Like, that's my first time I learned that you can say no, even to your manager.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
a
not
hundred
just about,
percent. And
sorry,
in
Spencer.
my role now, I'm a coordinator, and so I will be a manager on some projects, but then keep that coordinator title on others. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can be hard to, manage when I have my own events that I'm fully owning, and then some where I'm just kind of handling ad hoc tasks.
Right.
And to say no, sometimes at the beginning can be, a little daunting. But really, when I'm thinking about that balance, if I take everything on, my work-life balance is going to go out the window, and I think my
Mm-hmm.
quality of work is also going to go out the window, right? So kind
Mm-hmm.
of thinking about that and saying no when applicable, but also I think what's really helpful for me to maintain that balance is if someone asks me to do something, instead of saying just, yes, I can take this on, I always go, yes, I can take this on. I will have it back to you by X. Or when do you need this done by? It's super
Right.
important for me. I'm a big calendar person. I need to mark it on my calendar when it needs to be due.
Right.
And it's one of those other things. I think it plays both ways because if something doesn't need to be due for 2 weeks, I might late at night have
Mm-hmm.
some time and be like, oh, let me just do this now. But if I know
Right.
I have all this time, maybe I'll save it for when it actually during the workday, right? Not at 11 p.m. when I maybe should be spending some personal time. But it really just keeps me in line, having a schedule and using my calendar, and again, saying no when applicable. You gotta keep your things together.
Right. But I think that's really, I agree with you that when somebody asks you to do something, you want to ask, when do they need it?
Right.
What's the deadline? That way you can schedule your time and do your balance a little better. And then if it's something that's impossible, it's interesting too. If somebody, I love it when somebody's, I'd like to get that by the end of the day on Thursday. And then I'll say, well, it doesn't appear that I'm going to be able to make that deadline. I could give it to you by Friday at the end of the day. And surprising how often that works for them. Right.
Yeah.
It's just, they people just come up with a deadline that they think is really what they want, but it's not always the case. So I think that's good. Um, I also think that it's a good idea to feel comfortable to ask for help when you need it. And I've had some wonderful managers who have insisted that I get help. You know, they see that I might be in overload and they say, you need help. You need to get, we need to get you some help. And I love that. I think that's a great, I think it's not, you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help
Yeah, absolutely.
to avoid that burnout and overload and unbalance. And yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I feel like it's definitely it's a balance, especially on a team.
Hmm.
Sometimes I have a lot of projects I'm working on, sometimes my colleagues, don't. And so I think having a good team balance can also help your work-life balance. If
Sure.
I'm overwhelmed, someone can help me out, and then, vice
Right.
versa. When they're overwhelmed, I can help them out. But I
Right.
think everything goes hand in hand. And, you're all here for one goal. So it's gonna get done somehow.